there's a good baseline example, because Gladius can be a little hard to bring your finger on.
Listen up, Umi. This is a podcast with the most tucker. This is Forge the Narrative.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul, your host. We are the Battle of Souls podcast. I'm joined by Tandy Gates.
Hey, everybody.
And Adam Camilleri.
G'day.
Welcome to the show, everyone. We are into February already. Like, the year is, 1/12 gone.
Why do you got to put it that way?
Approximately, what is that? 8% in the books. Something like that. Oh, my goodness, we got a great show. We're going to talk about some things that you might not expect today. We're going to talk about, in the first segment, how to make Tyranids a protagonist. We'll answer the why here in just a minute. Then we're going to be talking about the things that make a detachment great, the 5 things that make up a great detachment. And then we'll talk about priming your models in the cold. This is something that I've been struggling with, but the other folks on the show have some answers, and maybe that benefits some other people as well. But let's just jump into it. Really happy to be here with y'all. Thank y'all for listening. Thanks for checking out this. Let us know what you think over on YouTube about the format. Hopefully everything is coming across like it should on the podcast aggregators. If you're new here, welcome. Please hit that subscribe button. Maybe leave us some 5-star reviews. That is one way to tell the algorithms, hey, you enjoyed it. Some other people might enjoy it too. I invite you to do that and invite you to come back with us weekly as we talk about Warhammer and Warhammer related things. So, Tanya, you have been working on a Tyranid army, and you've got some really cool things you're planning for it. Let us know a little bit about it and kick this topic off.
All right, so I'm doing Stillmania, which if you've been around Warhammer for a while, you've probably seen there's like a little infographic that comes up every once in a while. It's from the 90s, and it's basically a different way to approach starting an army in Warhammer, which it could be more lore based, or you have a cool paint scheme, and basically it is rule of cool in some way, shape, or form, and that is like the theme behind your army. You are encouraged to create lore. You're encouraged to have characters that you have backstory for. And so I was like all in on this. I was like, Stillmania, this is great. I'm doing Tyranids because I wanted something that was going to be a little bit easier to paint. And also it's a horde army, which I apparently love. So I got my paint scheme. I wanted to paint them a little bit like spiny praying mantises, so kind of like green and pink. And that was my theme that I was going for. And now I've come to this point where I have to write lore and like name my characters and things. And I'm kind of like scratching my head going, how do you write from the perspective of the hive mind? How am I going to write lore for this army? And I was wondering if you guys had any thoughts or suggestions. Maybe I'm missing something.
No, I don't know that you are. I think that's a great topic, because a lot of what we like, the names of the Tyranids are not the names of the Tyranids. They are what we call the Tyranid.
Right. Everything regarding Tyranids that we know from Warhammer 40k existing canon is just based off how the Imperium themselves see this army. And I guess that is a way that I could approach it, like having some biologist or something that is like writing, a textbook about this particular hive fleet. That is a way that I could approach it, but that doesn't seem as fun.
Yeah, all the fluff that we have for Tyranids is written from the perspective of the faction that is going against the Tyranids. So I think if you're writing from the perspective of the Tyranids, the word count's going to be low. As far as we know, hive tyrants have some kind of
conversation with a god. Right?
Yeah. We have no perspective on how there's a hive mind, but how does that hive mind communicate? Is it just like instinctive orders, like go there, kill this, eat that? Is it just going to be like hunger, 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 kill hunger? it's actually an interesting thing to discuss. One thing you could do, because I think just writing it from the perspective of somebody going against Tyranids, been done. You could write from the perspective a gene stealer cultist who's got the perspective of being part of the Imperium, but is positively aligned to the coming of the Tyranids, and like how they view the coming of the fleet and stuff like that, the indoctrination and the hypnosis they're under from the patriarch and things of that nature. That could be cool.
I do think that would be really cool. I would have to look into how much like self-awareness these cultists actually have as well. I'm not too familiar with Gene Stealer cult from the lore. I've only read one book that had any sort of Gene Stealer cult stuff in it. I'm not even going to say the name of the book in case, because it's like spoilers. And so that is interesting though. I mean, you could also write it from the perspective of some other sort of culture within the 40K universe. Like, I could approach it from Eldar or Necrons or something.
Yeah. Yep.
Couple things I've been thinking since you asked the question is that
I actually
how
have an idea.
far, how deep do you want to go? Because if they're all like truly extensions that go all the way back to a singular Norn Queen or one thing, it's like, is it all just this one big network, the hive mind, that goes back to a singular source? You know, where, or maybe we don't know this. At least I don't think this has ever been talked about. Like, are the tendrils of the hive fleet, are they their own? Do they have their own
Independent.
singular consciousness?
Yeah. Are they?
You know, or are they part of this whole thing that all goes back to one? It's like, how far do you want to go to get back to something that may have some type of consciousness?
I have an idea. So Necrons, of course, versus Tyranids is a very big thing. Of always has been in the lore. The Necrons are like, how dare you, locusty bastards, come and try and take what's always been ours. What if like a Cryptek designed a little canoptic infiltrator that could not be registered as a life form because it's a
like that.
Necron to infiltrate and study Tyranids? And
almost
it's
like a little homing beacon, like attaches
Yeah.
itself to one.
Yep.
Oh, that
And
is
so
really
it's
interesting.
inside the hive ship. You could kind of write whatever you want, like, because what you're having is like almost a AI or computer inside a hive ship that travels down to planets and back up, constantly studying, trying to figure out how the Necrons can destroy or unpack or, kind of defeat Hive Fleet Behemoth, for example, stopping a tendril heading towards them, whatnot. It's been sent out at the request of Lord such and such to study and recon and find out how to like sever the shadow in the warp or something. And that could be really cool because you're getting like a double alien perspective. You're getting a Necron's perspective from a computer on how the Tyranids work. So you could literally write it however the hell you want. Complete blank slate. It's
That would be really fun. I mean, I really enjoyed the Infinite and the Divine also, and sort of their take on Tyranids and stuff. They're very nonchalant and like non-emotional how they kind of see the happenings around the Tyranids as well. So that could be really fun to play around with. I mean, there is always the option that you just write from the we perspective. Everything is we, like it's the hive mind, right? So each character that you're talking about, like what's happening, is just we. That's the name.
If I was to say, I think the only bugs that lore-wise I could conjure having a level of sentience enough to write a story from their perspective would be like a Neuro Tyrant or a Hive Tyrant. Or could do it from the Swarm Lord as well. Like we know the Swarm Lord has the most cognitive, strategic, most mind power, supposedly, of any organism that we've encountered thus far. So you could just write it from the position of
mind power.
Sorry?
Most mind power, you think?
Well, strategic mind. Like, it was enough to like defeat the Ultramarines pretty much at McCrag.
How strategic do you have to be?
Yeah.
Couldn't finish off Calgar. Just got both arms, right? Couldn't figure out to go for the
I'm
middle.
kidding,
of
arms. Course. Yeah.
No love for the Ultras,
no,
eh?
I think you're thinking just about like at the 40K cap, like in the epic scale cap. There are other known like larger,
Norn Queens and
dominant,
Norn Queens and stuff like that. You could definitely go. You could just invent an organism.
Yeah,
You could
Yeah,
just invent your
actually,
own thing.
while
Actually,
y'all were talking, I was thinking about like, what if one of the mutations from some society that they ate the last person, the last thing in that society, and that mutated into something with like a recording or a consciousness gene or something.
ooh, I gotcha. I gotcha. So you have like a maliceptor or something that ate a soul gem of a Farseer, and instead of it, the soul got absorbed somehow through some mystic art or some enchantment or psychic ability like innate. Instead of the soul gem doing its job, it became part of the maliceptor, and then you got this maliceptor with consciousness trying not to get reabsorbed after they've like killed a craft world, and it's like, oh geez. Uh,
uh, that
Going
actually,
rogue.
I like that because the Maliceptor is one of my absolute favorite models in the Tyranid
mm.
range. So that could be really interesting as well.
So,
Uh,
a spirit gets assimilated by a feeder organism, and instead of it just dissipating, somehow melds with the latent consciousness of this organism, and all of a sudden, bang, you get a conscious bug, and you have a story.
I
So
like
it,
it.
in the like, I know we're just spitballing and not solutioning right now, just giving some ideas of maybe like what if you were writing from this perspective. But I think a neat narrative exercise
I think
because
it's cool.
like part of like how we experience this hobby is when I know when I'm putting together models, I'm thinking about what cool little scenario that they're in or what they're going to be in, or thinking about how they fit in the overall larger scale of things. And you know if you're and especially if you're playing in the crusader or narrative stuff too, like you want to have some reason that you're doing what you're doing other than just this one board game type style experience that goes away after turn 5
Mm.
ends.
Right.
Something that I have wanted for a while was a spoof on the first Alien movie. But it's a patriarch that's been sent out by a hive fleet to go and infest a world, and instead it crashes on like a space Hulk or it's very space Hulk esque, but it's written similar to like Alien, where it's just like some miners, could be Votan as well if you wanted to spice it up, and it's them just like versus this freaking patriarch crawling around their ship or whatever. It could be cool.
Let us
I have a lot of ideas now. I'm not really too sure which one is like. I feel like in the sort of feeling of Stillmania, probably the Maliceptor idea is the best, right? Because it's rule of cool, my
Hmm.
coolest model. But I'm gonna have to give it a think.
No, think about it and let us know in the
I
comments
have
what y'all think as well. Oh, we got another one.
have one more.
Fire
Haven't
away.
thought about this. The changeling.
The Changeling.
The changeling morphing itself into a hive tyrant to try and steer a tendril towards where it wants to go, where Zinch wants it to go.
That's a neat idea too.
Yeah, because who
Interesting.
says the changeling can't do that? I know it's probably a little bit of a stress, seeing as demons, the shadow in the warp is a thanama to demons. They're like different sides of the coin, so it's a little bit of a stretch. But I mean, we saw an inquisitor do it with orcs. Try and
Right.
steer. Sorry, no,
Well,
the other way. Try and steer a tendril towards an orc war
40K
and
is
get them to
so
knock each other out.
it's so big. Like you can
Mm,
do that kind of thing, even if it's only for a period of time, or maybe it was an experiment in the warp that goes wrong, and so
yeah.
they replay this thing 100 times in the warp with these ethereal creatures that they've manifested to look like. I mean, God,
Mm,
it's endless. 40K is so huge.
yeah.
Well, let us know in the comments what y'all think. The how y'all would approach this. That'd be a cool thing to do. I'd love to hear it. Or if you have another army that you're struggling with how to like make this lore unique to what you're doing with your army, we'd hell tight. Like last week, we're going to come back in just a little bit. You might have to jump to another video for the next part of this, where we're going to be talking about the top 5 things that make a detachment great. And then we'll come back and talk about that in just a minute. Dear everybody.
FTN is brought to you by Discount Games Inc. Please visit them at www.discountgamesinc.com. And don't forget to ask Jay about ways to save even more on your hobby projects.
Welcome to this segment of the show where we're going to talk about the top 5 things that make a detachment great. If you just joined us, my name is Paul Murphy. Got Adam and Tanya Gates here. We just wrapped up the other segment, so you can catch that in one of the links, or if whatever led you here. Know we do more of this kind of stuff. And in this segment, we're going to go through 5 things that make a detachment great. Obviously, there's a bunch of detachments out there. Some people seem to have their preference. You seem to see a lot of dominant things. We did the top 5 factions in the meta for January
Yep.
2026 on the last episode. And there's some commonalities between those people that are playing
Mm.
those factions and attachments they're taking. Are we going to see some of that on your list top 5 things, Mr. Kimberly?
So yeah, jumping straight in, I actually have 6 things, but you don't need all 6. You just need like as many of these as you can get. And please
Top
view
5 makes
every.
a snappier title.
It does. It does. Well, I got down the list of like what kind of stratagems do you need, and I listed 4 stratagems, 4 types of stratagems that you want in your stratagem suite. You don't need all 4. There are some out there like Gladius that have all 4, but having 2 to 3 of those gets you a baseline of goodness. Now, please view everything I'm about to say, and I'll reiterate it as I go, that everything of this has to go through a fit for purpose lens, as in what is fit for purpose for your faction. Some of the things I'm about to say, and I'll give examples as I go. Like I talk about, you need some form of durability stratagem, but that stratagem has to be fit for your faction. Giving orcs armor of contempt doesn't make a lot of sense, Cool. Literally, mega knobs is the only thing in your army that will get good return from armor of contempt. So if that's in your detachment, that detachment better be a banger for mega knobs, otherwise you're screwed. Because orc boys, they don't care about armor of contempt. Not gonna touch the side. Whereas something like armor of contempt is a reason custodies have never had armor of contempt in any of their factions, because it would be incredible. So horses for courses and fit for purpose are the 2 things you need to understand. But starting with the detachment rule, you either want one of 2 types of detachment rule. You either want the most generic one possible that affects everything in your book regardless, or you want the most focused, superpowered one possible that is relevant to your faction. For example, I am a shooting army, and this detachment makes me shoot more better. I am blood angels, rage cursed onslaught. Perfect. I am a fighting
And you're
army.
talking about something that like just has, you say, the most generic one that applies to every unit, has this particular keyword in
Yes.
the army, and so you want something that applies to everything to maybe squeeze value out of things that normally don't get a buff or whatever.
Think about it like fishing. The 2 main ways people fish is you either cast the widest net possible to catch the most amount of fish, as in you cast the widest detachment rule to affect the most units in your army as possible, and so you have the most viability in what you can take and be correct for the meta, or you have the most tightest specific one, as in like I am fishing for trout and I'm taking my exact trout lure. These are the 2 predominant ways to fish. You got to get the correct bait to get the right units to get to the most mileage. So here's my 3 or 4 melee units. This detachment makes them supercharged. Or Gladius, every unit, all the 199,000 Space Marine units all get good return out of Gladius. These are about 2 rules. Yeah, you want to have one of these 2 things. There are a lot of lukewarm detachment rules out there. Like a good example of one is like any army that can build a gun line, assault is good. Like detachment that says you get assault is just good. There's a good baseline example, because Gladius can be a little hard to bring your finger on. The next one is enhancements. So you should want or have one of these 2 enhancements in your package. Either an X Factor enhancement that gives your army something it cannot get anywhere else. A good example of this is a Vect Aura, colloquially, the aura that makes things cost an extra command point, or refunding command points. Let's say you don't have a Calgar, you don't have an Ethereal or Gretchen, you don't have any way to get an extra CP, but it is an enhancement that can give you an extra CP. You need something like this, a little bit of X Factor. Or oppositely, you need something that will just make your thing do its thing amazingly. Blood Angels, again, having an enhancement that just gives you sustained hits 3. Here's my punchy boy. Here's an enhancement that makes my boy punch this much harder.
Hey,
Shoot
this
this
guy
much
likes
harder.
this guy likes to punch.
Yeah.
This,
You must have one of those 2 at a minimum, and some of the best enhancements in the game have both.
he
So
can
you
also
want one.
reroll. What?
Yeah. So you want one enhancement that gives you an ability you do not have anywhere else. Either that gives it to themselves or to themselves in the unit preferred, or an enhancement that makes your unit that you always want to take that much better, either shooty, punchy, etc. Then we go on to the stratagems. Your detachment wants to have
Wait, we're
2
on number
to
3.
3.
We're on number
This
3
is
now.
number 3. Yeah.
Number 3.
And
Number
so
3.
I have
Call these
I have 4 examples of enhancements, and these are the next 3 of these. And these are enhancements. You gotta have at least 2 or 3 of these. If you do not have any of these, I am sorry, you are not working with enough tools in your tool, or your tool belt has the wrong size sockets for the game. But these are the types of stratagems that will make a good detachment. Starting at number 3, the first one, damage dealing strat. that is fit, once again, fit for purpose. You are a melee army. I don't want to see a shoot harder stratagem in my melee detachment for my melee army. There are exceptions to the rule, more DACA, of course, when that is, you're working with, like, we were working with 2 data sheets. It's essentially, sorry, 2 in a character. We're working with flash kits, looters, and shock attack gun mechs. And sure, giving them sustain hits too. Yeah, we're playing. We're rolling dice here. That's a good enough detachment that they don't need to have all of these things. But guess what? Mordaka did. Mordaka had everything I've just reeled off. Mordaka has in spades, or it was on release. So you want a damage dealing stratagem. What does that look like? The best versions of damage dealing stratagems are always pretty much +1 damage or +1 to wound. Yep.
Are you counting like something like a lance?
Yes,
in the
lance
damage
counts
dealing?
as +1 to wound, as long as you're an aggressive army. Giving Tau lance, sorry to say, not a good stratagem. This is why we always have to look at the lens of fit for purpose, because, like I said, giving Tau lance, whatever, anything would be better than giving Tau lance. But in saying that, they still have rampages. If they gave the Crute detachment lance, now we're talking. Because you want to take rampages, you want to have melee assets. It fits the ideology and fits the fit for purpose of the rest of the detachments. Links up a bit. But if I'm a shooting army, I want to see something like it ignores cover. I want to see a sustained or a lethal hits, or I want to see a reroll, either to hit or to wound. But the best versions are always plus damage and plus to wound. Those are the 2 best versions of damage dealing stratagems that we have in this game.
And you're counting any type of reroll, like reroll 1s is fine. You're not talking about just reroll everything. You're talking about anything that gives you another shot.
Of course, more reroll, more better. Think Renegade Raiders, full rerolls to hit against things on objectives, and then of course you partner that with the fact that Legionnaires already get full rerolls to wound against things on objectives, and all of a sudden we got ourselves a baseline unit that has a huge ceiling. And so perfect example there. But yeah. Of course, rerolls are always good. Sustained and lethal are always pretty good. But yeah, like I said, pluses to wound and pluses to damage are the 2 best versions of damage dealing stratagems. Next up, number 4. The next type of strat you always want to have is what I call a utility stratagem. Now, for Tau, and I'll use Tau quite a lot because they're very easy, they're sandboxed into that shooting phase to do all their damage. So they're not really, multi-phase damage dealer, or very rare versions are. But for them, a utility strat might look like advance and shoot, or fall back and shoot, or move, shoot, move, things like that. Whereas juxtaposed to that, move, shoot, move on like a Green Tide variant of Orcs isn't going to be that impactful or that powerful. So you want something that's fit for purpose to the places where you operate.
Getting closer with the Orcs might be real useful.
Yeah, move, shoot, move on Orcs, not necessarily a bad thing. That could be pretty spicy. But like I said, it's going to be way better for Eldar than it is for Orcs, for example. Whereas for Eldar, that's like 3/4 of their damage dealing units would love to have that stratagem. In Orcs, it's like 2. 2 units would love to have that stratagem, because all the other ones can't go through walls, like the Morkanauts, Gorkanauts, all those things. They can't go through walls, so you can't really do the hop, skip, jump in and out of the ruins. But so assault, advance, and charge, fall back and do things. The best example link with the best units in your army. So advance and charge on Death Company, for example. Move, shoot, move on Tau. Crisis Suits is always fantastic. Whereas, like I said, like move, shoot, move for if move, shoot, move is in Rage Cursed Onslaught, that is a dead stratagem. That is like sick. You are checks notes. All my guns are pistols. So you're in charge range if I'm going to move, shoot, move. So I should probably just charge you. So, it makes no sense. Makes no sense. So you got to look at everything. And I'll reiterate once again, fit for purpose. Has to fit the ideology of the faction. Next one, number 5. And technically we have a honorable mention.
Got a bonus.
Durability strat. You need to have some way to try and make something, because so much of our game is built into killing things, and everyone can pretty much kill something if they really want to, but you always want to have the option to throw a wrinkle. You always need to throw a wrinkle into their plans, because sure, most armies, even through durability stratagems and buffs, can usually kill your best units. But can they kill the second one, the third one, the fourth one, for example? And those are the ones we need to try and put a durability stratagem on. Now, what are the best versions of durability strats? The inverse of the damage ones. -1 to wound, -1 damage. Mwah. The two best you could find in any detachment. But of course, we have armor contempt. We have minuses to hit. We have so many other versions of durability buffs. So the durability buff you have has to matter to your faction. -1 damage doesn't matter on 1 wound models. What Tau aspect host, -1 damage would mean literally nothing. Whereas -1 damage on Custodes, -1 damage on Marines, example, always going to be amazing.
Are you counting something that enhances a feel no pain or even gives a feel no pain in the durability?
That's the next one I was about to say. So the two best versions is -1 to wound and -1 damage, and feel no pain is probably the always default. And I'm talking about a generic feel no pain, not just one against mortals and devs. That one is a little too niche, as in like fantastic if your opponent brings a lot of devastating woods and they're going to tank shock you, grenade you a lot, sure. But outside that, a generic feel no pain, very powerful. Usually, the reason I don't rate that as good is so if I was to do a top 5 durability ones, it would go minus damage, minus to wound, armor contempt, and then feel no pain, or armor contempt equivalent, like, and then feel no pain. Because feel no pains generically come as a 1 CP 6+. There's very few instances of 1 CP 5+. I'm not sure if there is one. The only ones that I've seen are when you already have a feel no pain and you turn your 6+ into a 5+, for examples of death come. So feel no pain I think is a little bit less, because there's, while that feel no pain might be amazing on an Imperial Knight who has 26 wounds to apply that feel no pain to, 1 CP feel no pain on an Unit Intercessors for a 6+, probably not going to change the math enough to warrant it being a super powerful stratagem. Here's the ringer. Let's say you only have 2 of these 3 stratagems types that I've talked about. You have a premium damage dealing and you have a premium utility. What else? What is the one that would add to that enough to still make a good? And that is what I call an X factor stratagem. Reactive is the key one in the game at the moment. Having a reactive move is one of the most powerful stratagems you can have. And the only reason I don't put it as high as the other ones is because your opponent can play around it. They can't really play around, oh, cool, I can see you, slap down the CP, kill you harder. I advance and charge. Your opponent has no say in that, outside giving you units, literally putting units to die, so something else doesn't. These are what I think of things. So this is why I rank the other ones higher. Your opponent is shooting you. Your defensive stratagem is active, whereas somebody kind of has to give you the chance to use a reactive. And I put a reactive move as the best kind of generic X factor stratagem, but there's other ones. Uppy Downy, for example, taking things off the table, putting them back on the table, and 6-inch deep strike I also put as very, very powerful X factor stratagems that make your opponent, and these I call them X factor stratagems because the major benefits of X factor stratagems is not how you use them, but what they make your opponent do. They're things that influence how your opponent plays, and so that's why they're X factor, because while you don't always have control about using them, you're forcing your opponent to play around them. So the benefits of them is a little less tangible, so it's a little harder to actually quantify the value of them. But those are so if I just reel off my top 5 again, you want a detachment rule that either benefits
Number one,
you have a detachment rule that benefits every model you could possibly take in your faction, or that benefits a subset of those so freaking much sends them to the moon. The melee units in my army are just like some of the best in the game now, or my shooty assets are some of the best in or every model in my army can do something extra. Every single model in my army, no matter what I take, is just better. These are the 2 types of detachment you must have to have a good and great detachment. The next one is enhancements. Number 2, you must have 1 or at least 2 of these things, hopefully. A stratagem that gives you something you cannot get anywhere else in your faction. For example, Colstar enhancement for a crisis commander and retaliation cadre. Every single turn, that model can be taken off the table and put back on the table. You cannot get that anywhere else in that faction. So therefore, it is X factor and it's good. The other one is to take a character that already is good and then turns it up to 11. My punchy character punches 50% harder. My shooter character shoots this much harder. My durable unit is this much more durable. They must do something that takes a unit or a character above and beyond its usual parameters. You must have 1. That was the second one, and you must have 1, if not both of those, for a good detachment. Lastly, into your stratagem suite, number 3, a damage dealing strat. Number 4, a utility strat, something to make your units activate when otherwise they could not. Assault is a perfect example of this. On a lot of our tables, you can't quite get some of these big models, around corners with pivot move and stuff like that in order to see and shoot on turn 1 and turn 2 sometimes. If you have assault, Does your unit just get to activate? Utility-wise, making it something that wouldn't have activated, activate. You're out of charge range, but I have advance and charge, so I'm in charge range. Perfect example. Utility stratagems. That is number 4. Number 5, a durability stratagem. Something to put issues on your opponent's damage output and make something that could be killable unkillable by dint of utility stratagem. A durability stratagem. And that is your top 5. Honorable mention, like I said, technically number 6, X Factor. If you don't have all 3 of those, but you have 2 of those and this one, I still think you're great because you have a reactive move. You have your ability to go off the table, come back off the table, deep strike closer, steal objectives, move, shoot, move, these kind of things where your opponent has to play around them and therefore they add value to your matchup. And that is my top freaking 5 things that make X-Men.
Excellent list. We get asked all the time what makes a great unit, and there's normally sometimes things that come built equipped with these types of abilities. And now, when you're looking through your list of detachments, keep your eye out for those things. What did we miss? What would you put in those categories? Let us know down below. We're going to come back, talk about how to prime in the cold. See y'all in just a little bit, no matter where you're going to find us.
You're listening to Forge the Narrative.
We are back, everybody. This is our hobby segment for this week. Coming in here in February. We actually just wrapped up doing a segment on the top 5 things in the detachments. Great. And then we did another segment about like how to frame and write your lore from a Tyranid perspective, like how the Tyranids could be the protagonist and some ideas on that. So it's been a cool week so far of our segments. Hope you're digging it. So priming in the cold. I'm just outside of Atlanta, as many of you know, and it got really, really cold here. Now I'll tell you what really, really cold is different for people in different parts of the world, right? But for us, it got down to well below freezing, out below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and even dipped into like single digits with the wind chill in the evenings and stuff. But we had several days where it was really, really cold, and it slowed down my model production. I've not had great success priming in the cold in the past, and it has made me a little, prime shy because I want to work on some models and I want it to look nice.
Right. I feel like as the resident Canadian here, I probably have a few tips for you.
I'm listening.
Yeah. The first thing is to make sure that your can of primer is at least at room temperature. So you want to, if you're storing it someplace cool, like a basement or something, you want to bring it upstairs, warm it up. And what you can do is you can put some warm, not hot, but you can put some warm water in like a container. I do my kitchen sink. And then you can put the can in the warm, not hot water.
We are not suggesting warming a can, of anything.
Right. Right. So it's like an ambient kind of way to bring the paint up to at least room temperature. And then you'll have to shake it a lot as well, just to make sure that all that heat is distributed evenly through the paint. And then that sometimes makes enough of a difference. But if it's really cold, you still can't do big prime sessions. So if you're the kind of person who primes 500 points at a time, you probably are not going to be able to do that in the cold. You probably have to do 5 models at a time. I did 10 models last weekend, and even then that was pushing it a little bit, right, before bringing it back inside to warm it up again. So something to keep in mind there. Adam, do you got anything?
Yeah, so what we're trying to avoid here is that powdery finish, yeah?
Yeah.
On your miniatures.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't adhere properly either. I find either extreme heat, extreme cold, both are bad. Whereas if I'm trying to airbrush or spray in Australia and it's too hot, it dries before it hits the model. If it's too hot. So I have, correct.
Yep.
We kind of just look at the next weekend when we get a priming day and we're like, nah, it's cooked. Yeah. I'm either priming at 6 a.m., which I'm not, or I'm doing it another day. And that happens a lot in Australia, and especially in certain climates. But yeah, I found, and one of the tips that I had when I was first starting out, because I remember spraying some of my fantasy ogres and getting that really powdery grey finish, and even just rubbing it off and getting it on my fingers. And bloke at the hobby shop, the Games Workshop store, Ascot Vale actually, if any of those lads are watching, he would just have a bucket. He just brought a bucket from home and he would fill it up with just hot tap water. and we'd sit it in that for like 5 minutes before we sprayed, and we'd even do trips back and forth. Like, if, to Tanya's point, yeah, doing 500 points is probably a bit much, but if you were doing like a couple of tanks, you'd spray one, put it back in, wait 2 minutes, spray another, put it back in, and that worked pretty well. It's been like working a treat for me also. And also the distance, you have to hold it. Like the one
Yeah.
where it's too hot, I find if I desperately need something done and it's just too hot, but that's the only window I've got, I gotta hold the model a lot closer and just really be clever on the trigger. Like like no, I'm making the noises, but you know what I mean. No, do not
No
do
long
not
sprays in one
do not
spot.
no, yeah, it's no full auto on your bolt gun, you precision fire, which can be problematic. So I find if it's too hot and it's just like a single model, I use a brush. I just brush it off and I just get over it. It might take a little bit longer, but I'm guaranteed at the finish that I want.
I
with a
do
little
try to
more
keep
control.
a pot of primer paint, to brush paint to do
Yeah.
it. Now I didn't. I was fresh out. I was like, yeah, this is tragedy. Everything's ground to a halt. It's the
Yeah.
perfect storm.
I'm assuming you spray outside, you prime outside.
I do, yeah.
So the other way I've done it in Australia is when it's really hot outside, but it's not too bad inside, is I'll get right under my extraction fan in my bathroom, and I'll make sure I'll put I'll put some newspaper down, and I'll just spray down.
Don't do
straight
that.
down on the.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Nobody prime inside. Only prime in unventilated areas.
I only spray straight down with the primer, like literally straight down and like never sideways.
I don't
never
know if that's
nothing.
how chemicals
And
work.
it's not good. It's not good. But I'm
Nobody
saying
prime
desperate
inside.
times.
Only well
Desperate
ventilated.
times. Yeah. Well, that's why you got your fan, extraction fan on in your bathroom, so it's going to hopefully sucking straight up. And I'm not saying prime a Baneblade with this technique. What I'm saying is desperate times. We all
when
get
you
a
got that
little
one
silly.
character model. No.
Correct.
No, just wait. Wait.
I think another thing to take into account too is the humidity. So if it's really cold and it's dry, like you might be a little bit cooked, but if it's really cold but the humidity is okay, then you might actually be okay because there's like a number of factors that kind of change how the paint works, right? It's like we were talking about, if it's dry, then the paint dries before it hits the model. You have to bring the model closer. If it's cold, it freezes. The paint freezes before it gets to the model, so you bring closer and whatnot. But generally, if you're looking at the different variables and only one of them is off, you can usually do okay. But if you're looking at it and there's multiple variables that are off, you probably are going to have to just wait until the day is a little bit better for you.
And then the other variable of how much you care about the model you're painting.
Also, when is your deadline? Like, is the tournament tomorrow? Maybe it's worth it.
Got to get that battle ready score. I respect that too. No, those are some good tips. So it doesn't get that cold that often here. It's starting to, but obviously in the winter. So, but this kind of hit all at the right time. It's like, oh, I'm out of brush on primer. We're stuck indoors because it's probably going to ice over and it's super cold. Like, oh, and I didn't prime these models yet. So all that I stacked up and to where we're at. But anybody else got any tips? Let us know.
I got another tip.
Oh, go for it.
If you know that the weather is changing and sometimes it's going to be cold, prime 500 points worth of just random stuff before the weather changes. We do like the big prime at the end of April before winter starts to kick in, so that like I've got all my Tyranids are primed. I got like a bunch of guard stuff primed, and like you just prime it all in advance and you can sort of pick through it.
Well, thank you for the tips. I'm going to put them to good use. Y'all can see how this turns out. Maybe check out Instagram where we post picture of our models and stuff. That is our show this week. It has been an honor to sit here and talk some Warhammer stuff with y'all. Y'all working on anything? Got any big plans coming up soon? What's going on?
Working on both ogres and some Imperial agents for my Imperial Knights army. I got some Navy breaches I just finished, and I'm going to start on a couple of assassins. I'm actually tips. I bought a Calidus assassin. I borrowed a Calidus assassin off a mate for a tournament. I destroyed that model. I broke it in like 4 places and had to buy him a new, as a good mate should.
Because that model is all.
I am bad. There's a reason I play ogres in 40k, sorry, in fantasy, because I break things and I'm very clumsy and I'm super apologetic about it. So I broke his model, I repaired it to the best of my ability, then I gave it back to him, and then I bought him in. And so that's always a good thing to do. If you borrow a model and you break it, replace it. But I also bought myself one at the same time. How do I reinforce that model so I just don't have some wood chips after my first event?
That's a good topic, I think, for next week.
That's what I was, that's
I like that.
that's what I'm leading up to here. How
Little
do
hobby
we,
teaser.
yeah.
Well, there you go. Folks got to tune in, figure out how we do from destroying yours and others' models. A
Yeah,
general menace
I don't want to have to buy a Calidus for every event.
for every person. Yes.
Uh,
Nice. All right. Well, seriously, thanks a lot for hanging out. Thanks a lot for listening. Don't forget to do those things, hit the buttons, 5 stars, and all that kind of stuff. We'll see you all next week, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
I don't know what they said, but I already subscribed. You better do it too.